Okay, I checked out his stream, and this is who we're dealing with.
Leadership to strengthen our process.
Party, like, remember
the creation of workers' hotspots of communist and anarchist
actors in the first place. And because
yeah,
the leader
that
was
if I may interject, yeah.
Look at his fucking hat. Look at this fucking posturing. Look at his attempt to look revolutionary. This is the fucking reason. He's in the show queue? Oh, good. He's in the show queue. Okay, we're ready. Let's get this show on the road. He's here. Okay, let's do this. Let's get this show on the road. Alright, one sec. Alright. Hold on, let me exit this out. Let me pull up. Put this back over here. Pull this up here. Okay. Alright, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're doing this. Alright, let's do it. What up, bitch? Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, okay.
Hey,
You got my attention.
Okay, cool. So I want to kind of rein things in a bit. So initially, I was going to have a discussion with you on China, but I actually want to kind of diffuse the drama that's kind of flared up over the last couple of days.
Only after you stop me in my tracks, completely wasting my time and energy, and forcing my hand into doing this when I didn't want to do it.
Oh, I'm sorry for forcing your hand.
Yeah, you did force my fucking hand.
I apologize.
Your chance to be cordial and polite has passed.
Why is it passed, though?
It's passed because I gave you the fucking opportunity to go through my community, and your response to this was you wanted to make a video obliterating me.
Well, I haven't reproduced it yet, and I was going to hold off on that and
so
not
all
do
that
it.
shit you were talking about me, you were calling me a clown who doesn't like to be laughed at, an absolute bitch, and what else?
Well, yeah, that's because you were talking shit about me to Leftism Today, dude. But
yeah,
hold
I was.
on.
I was.
Wait, hey, calm down. Hold on. I want to explain things from my perspective, all right? So, when I messaged you a few weeks ago on Twitter, you had about a third the subscribers I did.
Okay.
And I was reaching out to you because I saw, hey, this guy looks pretty cool. I want to see what he's about. And initially, you seemed interested in having me on, and that's great and all. But then a few weeks pass, and you're running train through all these bread tubers, and it just seems like all you're interested in is debating people. So I'm okay,
you wanna know why?
Fuck it.
You want to know why?
Well,
dude,
let me finish.
There's dozens of people.
Can I please finish?
Go ahead.
I just want to finish. Please, just let me finish. So, you're debating all these people, and I figure, fuck it. If that's what he wants, then I'm going to pick a topic that I know for a fact we disagree on. So I threw that out there. I had no prior knowledge of your drama with the people that got your Twitch shut down. I knew absolutely nothing about it. So when you came to me and you said that I had to go through your community and basically convince your followers to have me on, I mean, considering you were like, oh, you have fewer subs than me, considering not even 3 weeks ago you were a third my size, and now you're sitting here talking down to me, telling me that I've got to go through your community and basically grovel to your fans in order to have me on, when I was trying to help you and connect with you in the first place, is very uncomradely and very narcissistic behavior.
Really?
And that is the reason why I got upset and reacted the way I did.
Traveler, why did I grow 3 times in size? Just because I listened to you 3 weeks ago?
Well, the reason why you grew 3 times in size is because you went running train through all the bread tube debate.
So I was wrong for doing that, right? I should have listened to you instead.
You put a magnifying glass on yourself, and it's not all that, okay? You are a genuinely funny and entertaining dude, and you know how to rouse an audience, okay? It's
okay, let me get this straight. Even though I have dozens of people, and I'm going to call a spade, some of whom I prioritize 1,000 times more than you because I know them, because I actually know who they are. I have no fucking idea who you are. You understand? even though I put them on the back burner too, because by the way, I'm in law school also, and this shit has hit me like a train. This breadtube shit. Out of nowhere. And our growth, it's so crazy to fucking manage this shit. Even though I put them on the back burner, and not a single fucking person did what you did, feel so scorned and so butthurt and so bitter, that your fucking response to that is hostility.
Well,
you're so narcissistic. You're so fucking narcissistic. All the things I fucking did that you're criticizing are why we're putting ML on the fucking map.
Yeah, okay, this is pure projection on your part. Let's be real, dude. Like, you're sitting here acting like I owe it to you to go through your fucking...
You don't owe me shit! But what do I owe you? What do I owe you? I don't owe you a fucking thing. You're right. Well, but I'm not the one. I'm not the one who's coming at you. You came at me. Well, because I didn't want to give you the time of day because I'm too fucking busy.
You could have just said this in the DM rather than basically telling me to go grovel before your fans and suck your dick.
Listen, fellow traveler, you sent me a formal request to debate me. And your explicit reason for that is, this is the only way I get your attention. I have to challenge you. Well, you got my attention. Is this how you want to get my attention? I would have gotten to you eventually. It's not like I'm gonna forget about you.
You could just write back. I'm trying to explain this is all miscommunication and trying to make amends with you.
But you fired the first shot by formally challenging me to a debate, and I gave you my formal professional answer back. You formally challenged me to a debate. I gave you my formal policy, and I reiterated, these are the rules I laid out tonight. Why should I have made an exception for you when you formally challenged me to a debate? You didn't clarify enough for me because I didn't know the context. Okay, let's read the DM.
Because right now it just sounds to me like I'm gonna be real with you, dude. It just sounds to me like you're just chasing clout and you care more about building an audience.
You're right. I'm chasing clout. Keep giving me your leftist bullshit because you love failure and you hate success. Of course I'm fucking chasing clout, you fucking idiot. I'm putting that shit on the fucking map. First and foremost, I'm concerned with growing, yes. It's success.
But look at the way you're doing it. Look at the way you're doing it, dude. Look at the kind of community you're building. I see a lot of fucking toxicity and trolling that comes out of your community because of the way that you, because the way you convey the message.
Yeah. And right now, it's a war between us and BreadTube, and you're taking your side. You sound like Sansol right now. Oh, your community is so toxic. Shut the fuck up, bitch. Then why the fuck are you here?
It matters because if you're trying to reach people, you're not going to do it by acting like a crazy lunatic.
But I'm doing it anyway. But I'm doing it anyway.
All you know how to do is escalate, dude. You don't know how to have a straight conversation with people.
And I don't owe you a fucking nice conversation, you fucking asshole. And I'm growing anyway. So what kind of advice is that? You think I'm going to be nice to you now? Why? So I can set the example that anybody who wants to come and attack me, I'm going to be nice to you. Now. Oh, yeah. Hey, this is how you get attention from Haas. First attack me, and then when you come on and talk to me, we're going to be friendly and polite. Is that what you fucking think the precedent I'm going to set? No, No, I'm going to set a fucking example of you.
I'm trying to rein things back.
You're not going to. It's not going to be successful.
You're right. I can see that now.
Yeah, good.
Everybody, record this conversation.
It is being recorded.
Keep this on the map. I just want this to be on the record that I was the one who tried to apologize.
You bitch! The fact that you're on here now is a fucking act of war. I didn't want to fucking have you on or debate you about this shit. You forced my fucking hand. This is the attention you sought and which you're gonna fucking get. You call me names. You threaten you want to make a video to obliterate me. You asked for war.
You're fucking green. Why do you have such an altitude about yourself?
Because I've been in this longer than you probably. How long have you been a communist?
No, you fucking haven't.
How long have you been a communist?
Year and a half. You've been here like what, 2-3 months?
No, I've been public 2-3 months. You
nobody knew who you were like a month.
Exactly, but now they do, don't they?
Yeah. Like I said, you ran roughshod over BreadTube.
Yeah.
You chased the clout. Yeah. You argued with all the big BreadTubers.
Yeah.
You're loud.
Yeah. And that's why I'm bigger than you now. That's why I'm bigger than you. Because instead of attacking other MLs like a pussy, I go after the big fish. That's what I fucking do. You're right. I'm not a bitch who goes after the fucking up-and-coming streamer who's doing a minimum of success and represents something new. I don't go after those type of fish. I go after the big and established ones. You go after other MLs just because they're more successful than you and you're jealous.
20%. Dude, you were the first time I have ever addressed or gone after another Marxist-Leninist, and it's because you're a giant fucking
The first time, and the reason it's the first time, the reason it's the first time, the reason it's the first time you're doing this.
My content is dedicated to addressing BreadTube. The rest of it is dedicated to
And how successful have you been? How successful have you been? Do some self-criticism. You've been around for 2 years, then why the fuck do you have less subs than me?
It's not always about the sub counts, dude. It's
to
about
me it is. To me it is. To me it is. It is about the fucking sub counts.
Community.
No. A sub count.
The last thing you do as a comrade is beat other people.
I'm not
down.
your comrade, you fucking LARPer.
Yeah, you are.
I'm not your Kmart comrade. I'm not your fucking comrade. You LARP in the Kmart parking lot. You wear a Mao hat, LARPing in the fucking Kmart parking lot.
And when they get called out on their bullshit, that's not what
you wear a Mao hat and LARP in the fucking Kmart parking lot doing your direct action revolution, and I'm your comrade. Fuck you, bitch. You're just like these BreadTube people in my fucking eyes. You're the same. You are my fucking enemy. You are my enemy.
Well, I'm sorry you think that, dude.
It's a fact. You are my fucking enemy.
We could have been friends.
We will never be friends. You will never be my friend. You will never be my friend. You will never be my friend. Friends don't do what you fucking did.
I love that insult, fellow cucker. Fellow cuck.
Yeah, that's what you are.
If you're gonna insult me, dude, I just want to lay this
please insult
now.
me, please. Give what you got. Give what you got. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, if you're going to insult me,
yeah,
then you could at least come up with one where you're not also insulting yourself. Because if you don't know it or not, the implication behind calling me a fellow cuck implies that you too are a cuck.
I called you fellow cuckler.
Yeah, fellow cuck.
Yeah.
As in, I'm a cuck.
No. It doesn't mean you're my fellow. It means that's your name. You're someone's fellow cuckler. To BreadTube, you're BreadTube's fellow cuckler. See how words can have different meanings?
If you really
you're
think
BreadTube's
I'm just like
fellow
BreadTube,
cuckler.
I'm very sorry that you believe that.
I know that. I know that. You are BreadTube. You are BreadTube to me.
BreadTube?
Yes, you are BreadTube. You are BreadTube. I'm the ML who took on BreadTube, and you're the ML who bit me in the fucking ankle for it. Just because I didn't want to talk to you about China right now. Just because I didn't want to talk to you about China right now, and I already owed, and it's my on bond of my honor, I already promised Comrade King I'm going to debate him about China and have a friendly discussion. That's already scheduled. But you needed the attention. It's all about you. You wanted to be treated special, right? You.
Keep projecting, Haas.
I'm still dealing with this Sansol shit, by the way. Sansol is making
You're all about the clout. You're all about the blood sports. You don't give a fuck about the movement.
Oh, sure. Sansol is making a fucking video about me as we speak. Still in the heat of this. I'm still in the fucking heat of this, and you threw this on me now because you're so fucking narcissistic.
I'll share it around just because you're an asshole. Keep projecting.
Go ahead, share it around. Listen, I can't wait for your video. Please edit it. Put all the effort you can in editing it, because I'm just going to go on stream.
I don't even think I need to make the video anymore just because you're digging your own grave.
Oh, am I?
You're just burying yourself.
I don't give a fuck.
By alienating allies.
I trust my
you're not
people
gonna attract
see
allies,
the truth.
Dude.
I trust they see the truth.
You're not going to attract allies. You have many cultists.
I have allies.
You have cultists. I have allies.
I have cultists? Is that true? I have cultists?
Yeah, dude. They all rim your asshole in the server uncritically and treat you like a fucking prophet.
They like me. They like me because I fight for them against the true enemy. You fight other MLs for no reason. You fight other MLs like a bitch and a parasite. I took on BreadTube. Of course they like me for that. Of course they like me for the fact that I took on these big names. You take on other MLs.
Your little hug box misfit. Your little hug box of misfit toys.
Keep insulting my community. See how far it gets you.
Well, I mean, frankly, if the kind of people that you're attracting are a bunch of racists and transphobes who like shit on other people.
Look, guys, it's BreadTube. BreadTube has been revealed. We're all racist and transphobes and Nazguls. Are we Nazguls too? We're Nazguls too, right? We're Nazguls too, right? Guys, remember when I told them?
If I have POC and trans folk telling me this shit, then
remember when I told you? Remember I told you he's BreadTube. Remember I told you it's a branch of BreadTube.
You got terrible optics.
Do you remember when I told you guys it's a branch of BreadTube? Remember when I told you guys that it's a branch of BreadTube? I told you that.
Now he's deep throating the mic. Great.
I am, because I'm going to dominate you. You're not going to speak over me.
Bitch, right? And
listen,
you don't even
you are
have
a little bitch. You're not going to speak over me. You're not going to speak over me.
You called me a little bitch, and you don't even have the balls to fucking forgive me and like put this shit aside.
Oh, it takes balls to forgive you, so I could set the precedent that anyone who comes and attacks me, I'm gonna be their friend and bring them on stream, give them free clout. You're getting the attention you asked for. You're getting the attention that you asked for.
You're a fucking wrecker. Holy shit.
I'm the wrecker, guys. I'm the wrecker. Who fired the first shot, though? Me or you?
You.
No, really? Really? You were planning on making a video to attack me. Had I not seen it and pointed it out, you would have already made it.
Don't worry, bro. I'm not going to make a video about you.
No, make it. I don't care now because we're doing this now.
Satire.
But I caught you. You were planning on attacking me in my moment of weakness. You were planning on attacking me in my moment of weakness, but I'm the wrecker.
You're paranoid. You're insane.
Okay, let's bring up the evidence. Let's bring up the evidence before he deletes it. Bring up the evidence.
What fucking evidence? Hey, can someone download the stream? Like, seriously.
Don't worry, the stream's not going nowhere. Everyone's gonna see the stream.
Yeah, keep it up, motherfucker. Seriously.
Yeah, unless they take it down because I played that song. But,
download the stream, keep this shit up, alright? I want everyone to see this.
Good, I do too.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm glad you do.
Microsoft Edge.
Hey, Infrared. Hey, Haas, how much can you bench?
How much can you bench?
330 pounds. You?
Well, I've never done my max. I've only done how many I can do of 10.
Oh, okay. What can you do of 10?
225.
Oh, not bad, dude. You could probably hit around 315, 320. So,
okay, so what was the point of your stupid question?
So then it's an even match. Okay, cool.
What was your point of that stupid question? My chest is probably bigger than yours.
Hey, Haas. You're such a badass, right? Why don't we settle this in a cage?
No, dude, come to me. If you want to fight me, you actually have to fly over to me. You do the effort and come to me. I'm not getting myself in trouble
I got my stimulus coming in, dog. You roll mat, you box, you roll mat, dog.
You want to fight me one-on-one? Is that what you want?
Yeah,
you're such a pathetic pussy.
You're
such a pathetic pussy. Look at this fucking clout-hungry pussy, and he wants to fucking do a Jake Paul fight. Dude, first you have to be like Jake Paul and have his subscribers if you want to fucking fight me. Who the fuck are you? Why would I fight you? Like, that's not going to get me anything. It's not going to get me anything.
Well, I mean, it would show that you're man enough to step up.
No, you're man enough if you defend yourself in the face of a fight.
Shut the fuck up. Back in my day, men didn't cry and whine like little 12-year-old boys because someone insulted them on the internet.
When did I cry or whine? I just called you a bitch and a pussy.
You've been crying and whining this entire time, my friend.
Have I been crying?
Well, you're calm now, but
sounds like you're crying. Sounds like you've been crying. You've been crying, dude. You begged for my forgiveness. I'm not giving it to you, bitch.
I didn't beg for your
forgiveness. You got on your knees and I kicked dirt in your face. You got on your knees in front of me and I kicked dirt in your face.
Yeah.
Who's humiliated?
Why don't we have that cage match, dude? Why don't we set
Why would I have a cage match with you? Why would I spend my time training and doing all this shit for you? Why would I do that? For you? Why would I do that?
I'm a little bitch, right? I'm a little pussy.
You are one. You are one.
Settle this in the cage.
You are one.
Settle this in the cage.
No, I'm not gonna settle in the cage. Fuck you. Why would I spend time on you?
Record, he won't fight me.
No, I will fight you, but you have to be the one to put the first thing. You have to find me, and then we can see.
Oh, I have to find you. I gotcha.
Well, I can give you my general location in the DMs. You have to come here, and I'll be like, I'll be at the grocery store at this time, and no one's gonna be around. You have an opportunity to pull up, and you can deal with me however you feel.
Nah, fuck that. I'm talking in the cage, motherfucker. I'm not talking on the streets.
Why would I waste my time on you?
Who are you? You're going to school for law school. I'm not going to let you trap me like that. We're signing waivers in the fucking cage,
No.
dude.
Do you think I'm a snitch?
We're going to make this shit official.
You think I'm a snitch?
We're going to do it.
You think I'm a snitch?
Dude, you're in law school.
So what?
So I'm assuming you're going to school to be a lawyer.
No, not necessarily.
I'm not going to walk up to you and punch you in the middle of the streets so that you can
walk up to me. You can walk up to me and you can say, you can just you don't have to sucker punch me, but you can instigate something if you find me. Yeah, because I defend myself. Listen. Physically, I will defend myself, right? I'm not gonna go in a cage with you for what? For what do I gain from that? I have to gain something.
Oh, you want me to put up money? I'll match you. I'll match you $2,000.
$2,000's not enough for me.
Oh, how much is enough for you?
To do that? $10K.
Yeah.
10K.
How much is enough for the great Haas? You have to understand.
10K.
I can't afford to go to law school like you. I don't have that much
Okay,
money.
keep crying like I give a fuck. You think I give a fuck?
All right, well, tell you what. Why don't we talk about China, all right?
Okay, finally you want to get to China.
Let's talk about China.
Yeah, by the way, let me lay out the rules. If I speak and you interrupt me, you get muted. No one's going to hear you. How do you like that?
Oh, so
yeah.
All right, but you get to interrupt me an infinite number of times. Got it.
If I can complete the sentence and I know what you're going to say, I'm probably going to interrupt you. Cuz I don't want my time wasted. Remember, you're on my stream. But you can prove that I interrupted you and you were actually going to make a point that I didn't predict, and then I'll look stupid.
Well,
so there's that. But I usually know what kind of point you're going to make.
Well, let me pose a question.
Yeah.
All right? Let me start by posing a question.
Yeah.
What do you define as socialist?
Dude, it's the freaking first thing you said. Do you not know who I am?
You're the great Haas.
You don't know who I am, and that's the first thing you're going to say? Didn't I tell you guys this is how it's going to go? But I prepared for this, so don't worry.
What's socialism?
You didn't take me by surprise, if that's what your question is. But
I just want to know.
I thought you were going to be more creative. I just thought you were going to be more creative. So you wanted to challenge me, but you didn't do any homework on me. You just liked my clout. You didn't care about doing the homework.
No, dude. Because the thing is, you were debating this one person, and you said socialism isn't worker ownership of the means of production.
Not.
And you have a different definition for me, so I want to know what your definition of socialism is.
To me, my definition of socialism is based on how it has been used historically, concretely.
Which is how?
Where do you want to start? In the 19th century?
Well, just give me a definition and we can run with it. You give me your definition, I can give you mine, and then we can talk
No. But I know your definition because I watched your video on the USSR. You have 5 points you define socialism as.
Yeah, I have 5 characteristics, but we can...
Yeah, 5 ones you pulled out of your ass, by the way. They're all stupid characteristics. But I even granted you those characteristics, and we can go 1 through 5. No. We can go 1...
abolition of generalized
Shut up. I know your 5 characteristics. We can go through 1 through 5, and I can prove to you that even based on your own definition, you cannot sustain the view that China is a socialist. But we're not going to get there yet. First and foremost, I want to establish this notion that you can pull socialism, you can establish the premises of what the definition of socialism is, even though that word has meaning for over 1 billion of Chinese people in a unique way. But you're saying they're all wrong. It's false socialism. You have the correct socialism, right? Because you have the right definition.
Derived.
Let me ask you a question, materialistic question. Where do definitions come from? Are they based on definitions defined in reality itself? Or are they based on things you pull out of your ass and create 5 points? By the way, why 5? Why not 6 and 7 or 8? Why 5?
Well, because I was just giving a general list of guidelines based on my reading of Marxist literature.
Okay, but you're reading. You don't know anything what you're talking about, though. Why 5? Why not? Some of those should have been combined too. By the way, there's no reason there was 5. Why 5?
Well, yeah.
It's an arbitrary number.
I was just simply trying to lay out a list of guidelines to define my terms, all right? We can simplify it more than that, but I just want us to agree on a definition.
I will define socialism for you. Ready? A mode of production that explicitly is defined by the social ends. By social ends. Simple. A mode of production.
Whose
mode, I should say, is defined by social ends. A mode of production whose mode is defined by social ends. Simple.
All right.
Is that obscurantist and word salad?
Yeah, incredibly.
Really? A mode of production whose mode is defined by social ends. You had 5 points of word salad. I had a simple 2-bit sentence.
I had clear cut.
We're gonna go through them. We're gonna go through them right now. Right now, we're gonna go through them.
Can you explain to me what the social ends are? What social ends?
It doesn't matter what they are. They are social
yes, it
ends.
does.
No, it doesn't. They are social ends. That's it.
Okay, well,
where does Marx establish the content of those social ends?
If we can't reach like a common definition that we can agree upon, I don't see a point in
We're not going to. That's the whole point. The whole point is we're not going to.
If we can't have an agreed concrete definition of what socialism is, then you can just say China's socialist.
Here we go with concrete definitions.
Yeah,
dude, the definition isn't concrete.
I'm a man of science. I'm concerned with.
You're not a man of science. You're a man of bullshit. You're a fucking LARPer. You're not a man of science. Shut the fuck up.
All right, whatever.
What does Marx establish as the social ends? Do you know that?
All right, what are the? Why don't you just tell me what the social ends are? Are you talking about?
Dude, it's in the fucking name. The social ends are just social ends. No, there is no predefined content of what those social ends will happen to be, because those social ends will differ across time and place. You can't fucking... The social ends, for example, will differ in 1930s USSR as compared to, 1870s Europe. They will differ across time and place.
Right.
It just matters that the ends are social.
All right, well...
Do you know what capitalism is? Do you think capitalism is based on social ends? Of any kind?
Capitalism is an economic system based on the private ownership of the means of production, money, markets, and generalized commodity production. It emerged in the early 18th century and is, as it becomes more advanced, starts to look more and more like socialism companies go on to become corporations. Capital.
Dude, listen.
You can't just establish.
You're wasting my time. It's because you're wasting my time. I'm simplifying it. Capital.
No, dude, you can't just cut me off and interrupt.
Okay, please finish your point. Finish your point like the other guy. Please waste my time. Finish your point. Go ahead.
All I was trying to do was clarify what capitalism was and go on to differentiate that from socialism.
Everyone's so excited when they hear you talk. Please clarify.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my definition of socialism. One sentence. Here we go. All right. An economic mode characterized by the social or common ownership of the means of production, guided by a general economic plan, drafted preferably democratically as possible, and working towards the abolition of commodity production. And
that's the biggest piece of bullshit word salad whatsoever. Saint-Simon didn't say shit about fucking commodity production. None of the socialists in the 19th century who actually were responsible for the genesis of the word didn't speak about all this shit you're talking about. The only way you can simplify the meaning of socialism across every single use in which it has been given meaning is simple. A mode of production in which the mode is defined by social ends. That's how you encompass the diversity of the meanings given to the word. But even then, it's fucking reductive. Why
are we? I thought we were Marxists, dude. Why are we going off Saint-Simon's definition?
Because Marx did not invent his own socialism.
No, he called himself a communist to differentiate himself.
But Marx called communism. Marx spoke of communism as an actual reality. He didn't create his own. He spoke of it as something objective in reality.
But here's the thing, all right, buddy. Even if you go back to the...
I want to ask you a question. Where does Marx talk about abolishing commodity production?
We'll get to that later.
No, get to it now. Right? Where does he do it?
No, let me...
He doesn't do it anywhere! Not anywhere! He never speaks of abolishing it anywhere!
Let me get to the utopians, and then we'll talk about that. All right? Even the utopians had a general idea about distribution according to need. What is a commodity? It is a good that is being brought to a market for the purpose of being sold. You're a fucking child, dude.
No, sorry, what? Sorry, what? You're talking about the history of utopian socialism, even there's no fucking reason to do that because I'm trying to get this fucking conversation along. You're just boring the shit out of me.
Well, how is it a boring
It's not specific enough. Just say for social ends, and that'll encompass everything. That'll literally encompass everything. Just say for social ends.
But that's so nebulous. I want concrete definitions.
Yours is not concrete. Yours is a bunch of effluvia. It's not concrete.
You said earlier, like, that you talked about the social ends meaning literally fucking anything.
No,
You
it means
admitted
social
yourself.
ends. It means ends which are social rather than, for example, antisocial and just based on abstraction, which is what money is. Do you not know what capitalism is? Capitalism is MCM. The end of the circuit is just more money. What is more money? According to Marx, money is alienated human ability. What is this alienated human ability? It is purely abstractly alienated human ability that is not repurposed in a determinate way. It's not determinate, it's alienated. It's just abstract. It follows English, Lockean metaphysics. All of that shit is related. It's liberalism. Rights for its own sake.
And I get
rights for its own sake. Money for its own sake. That's what it is, dude. We're all talking about the same thing here.
I know. And when I look at China's economy, I see a lot more of that behavior resembled than I do.
But there is precisely none of that behavior. There's precisely none of that behavior.
What are you talking about, dude? They have stock markets. They have a capitalist
Yes, they
class,
do. Yes, they do.
Class.
But there is no money for money's own sake. The only profit in China does not mean what it meant in the 19th century. Profit in China is an extension of economic planning. It's an index. It's a measure of the profitability or of the success or failure of an enterprise. And by the way, that was also the measure that the Soviet Union had to use, and China before Deng's reforms had to use. They had to deal with this issue. Do you not realize that profit is not just about accumulating money for its own sake, but is an actual indication?
It's an
indication of whether you are gaining more than you are putting in.
Yeah,
it's a simple indication of that.
But yeah, and within the Soviet Union, profits had no bearing on the success.
Neither does it in China. That's the same thing. China's the same thing. If China wants to keep a company afloat, despite that it's going bankrupt, it will. If China wants to destroy an industry or a company, despite that it's doing successful, it will, and it has.
But yeah, but you also have to look at the way they behave as well, because
okay, how do they behave? Go ahead, fellow traveler.
Well, for one, you have capitalists in them and shareholders that make billions of fucking dollars.
Wait, this whole thing about billionaires?
Reaping massive fucking profits.
No. You don't know what money is, dude. You think...
Another thing...
No. I want to go on that point. I want to go on back on that point. Another thing. No, I'm going to mute you. We're going to address that point, not that another thing. First, we're going to address this point. Regarding this business of capitalists, again, in China...
Okay. There's a capitalist class.
No, but you can't say that there's a capitalist class. You can't say that.
Yes,
in the traditional Marxist sense, you can't. The billionaires in China is a misleading word. Billionaires...
How are they not capitalists?
Because if they liquidate their shares, all their value is lost. It's just that they own... Listen, you can critique that, and in China there's a discussion and critique going on. Not everything in China, by the way. Chinese Marxists do not justify everything that exists in China. There's things that they have discussions about, and they do discuss. But as far as billionaires in China are concerned, it's because they have a majority of shares, but they are not free to do what they want with those shares. They're controlled heavily by the government. That's why Jack Ma said, when you make more than 10 million RMB, whatever the currency is, you no longer are accumulating wealth, you're accumulating pressure. The party is on your fucking back. The government is on your fucking back. Everything you do is controlled. Okay? It's not how, like, what you're saying, there's like a capitalist class, and it's not like that, dude. It's just not.
Okay, well, you can have a well-established, strong, firm grip on the way your capitalist market economy functions, and it would still be a capitalist market economy.
But you cannot call it capitalist.
You are literally saying socialism is when the government does stuff. That is
when did I say that?
What you're saying?
When did I say that? Exactly. I said in China the government
is saying that the state has their fucking dick in everyone's business, dude.
But the reason I said that is because in China, ultimately, everything serves social ends.
So what about them suicide nets? Do those serve social ends?
First of all, as far as I know, please get rid of your feedback. As far as I know, that was a Taiwanese company. Okay? But even then, maybe there was a horrendous workplace culture within China. Actually, Chinese people are now debating and discussing and critiquing the 996 workplace culture. That's completely fine. But just because China's workplace culture, and by the way, the only people who have a right to critique it are Chinese people, by the way. But even if that's the case, that does not alone negate the legitimacy of Chinese socialism as socialism. There are problems in socialism. And by the way, what you're talking about is cultural. The idea that socialism can be reduced to culture, which is what you do because you wear a Mao hat and you're a LARPer, so obviously that's what you think. But socialism isn't reducible to culture. Ultimately, socialism is about the objective material relations and forces of production, okay? What that looks like in terms of culture is an open struggle, it's an open discussion, and nothing's going to automatically solve that.
I'm not concerned with the culture. I'm concerned with the way the economy actually operates.
How does it operate? You're such an expert.
At the end of the day,
wait, fellow traveler, let me ask you a question.
No, in order to have a thriving economy within the context of capitalism, you need to some extent have a thriving capitalist class, which China does. They're number 2 in the world for number of billionaires. That's
okay,
a good
you
sign
just mentioned that they're billionaires.
Class.
You didn't necessarily establish that there's a ruling capitalist class within China.
Well,
in order to establish there's a ruling capitalist class within China, you have to establish how their rule comes at the expense of the Chinese people.
Dude, let me fucking talk. Holy shit.
Please talk.
But anyways, as I was saying, the fact that they're even billionaires, the fact that there are landlords, the fact that you have people profiteering like this, the way that they do, implicates to some extent that the Chinese government has to accommodate them and their business interests on some level. So yeah, no, there are definitely proletarian elements within the CCP. There's more ideological diversity in the CCP than the Republican and Democratic parties combined. But the thing is that there's never been a country that's been able to truly go reform its way from a capitalist economy to a socialist economy. All right, it's never been done. When China does it, I've got to see it to believe it. If China does it, great.
You are mistaking the meaning of. First of all, there's a few things I have to address. The first thing is that there may be profit and all this kind of stuff within China. And by the way, it's really, really misleading to say that there's landlords because the government in China owns all land. The only exception... Let me speak! I let you fucking speak! Shut your fucking mouth! The only exception that's been made to that recently is that individual apartment units can be privately owned, as far as I read in the Chinese property law. But the government owns all land, technically speaking, okay? When you're saying there is a landlord and there's a capitalist class, I don't want to get into the semantics, but in order for you to establish that this is the ruling class, you have to establish that the Chinese state accommodates them in such a way that comes at the expense of the people. But the numbers show, as we can see, that the rule of the CCP and these reforms corresponded to the rising of the Chinese people's living standards, and now with this poverty alleviation program, all things, by the way, which have come at the expense of the capitalist class. In no way can you establish the capital. You shut the fuck up and let me finish.
I agree.
I let you finish, so you have to let me finish.
So you're throwing a million things in the...
Do you want me to mute you? I let you finish. You let me finish. I'm gonna mute you otherwise.
Don't play these fucking games with me. I'm trying to address.
You need to let me finish first. Write it down if you're gonna forget. You need to let me finish first. You have to establish that if there's a ruling capitalist class in China, that the state rules on behalf of their private interest. But you cannot establish that because time and time again, it's being proven, especially with this whole Jack Ma business. A lot of people used to say that the new ruling class in China were these tech people like Jack Ma, it's been proven. The Chinese state clamped down on them too. There is no capitalist class in China that whose interests are who rule as their private interest as the state. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing regarding reformism, you're mistaking political reformism, okay, with the gradual economic transformation that corresponds to what socialism and communism is. Neither Marx nor Engels put forward the idea that capitalism is just going to disappear overnight. Okay? It's laid out quite plainly in the Communist Manifesto. It's laid out quite plainly across the body of work of Marx and Engels that following the proletarian dictatorship, and it's not reformism, by the way, because reformism is political, not economic. Economically speaking, the material relations and forces of production change at a pace and at a scale that is different from the political pace. Okay? Politics, yes, you can conquer the state in a week or something, like Lenin said, right? Material relations of production, because they're objective and they're not based on our subjective stance in any kind of way, the scale at which those transform is beyond the purview of individuality. You're a Western individualist, cultural revolution LARPer, and so you think that socialism arrives at a scale accessible and within the phenomenal purview of your individual point of view. If I can't grasp it individually, then it's not socialism. Socialism is happening in China. There is a fundamental transformation occurring in China. There is a dissolution of the fundamental contradictions that give rise to commodity production that's happening in China. It's just happening at a scale of time that is beyond individual lifespans, that is beyond individual experience. And this individualism of yours is uniquely Western because all Asian societies recognize that real change, real being, real transformation is beyond the individual. But you're an individualist, Cartesian. That's the problem. Go ahead.
All right. So there's quite a bit that you said here. So I just did a couple quick bullet points. I'd like to talk about increasing living standards. Dangists love to bring this up all the time. So let's go ahead and tackle that.
Sure.
Yes, industrialization, modernization, and advancing science and technology has the general consequence of improving the general levels of wealth and money, well, just general levels of wealth in society. That is indeed true. Capitalism can, in fact, do that. And seeing the import of capital coming in from the West, China opening up to the West and inviting all these foreign corporations in, you have seen the very rapid growth in proletarianization and modernization of China. You've also seen the unequal modernization of China, as I've stated before. They're number 2 in the world for a number of billionaires, so keep that in mind. As for the whole thing on landlords not owning the land, I get that the Chinese government actually owns the land, but the thing is that they're leasing it out for a really long time to the landlords, and the landlords are still there profiteering off of it. They might pay a land tax. The Chinese system is, I mean, it sounds Georgist to me, but I'm not sure. As for the whole thing on Chinese capitalists have no power, just to let you know, Haas, there's lobbying that goes on in the CCP. All business and all law that's like done is within the context of the CCP. It's all done within the context of the CCP. So if you've got like liberal interests and like private interests working within the CCP, then that implicates that on some level they must be compromised. 91 million people in the party, not all of them are actually ideologically committed communists. And lastly, as for this transition from socialism to communism, that's even implying they're socialist in the first place. I mean, I'm willing to argue they were socialist under Mao, but then like after the passing of Mao and the Gang of Four and the opening up to the West, I mean, what Deng, he fucking smashed. He smashed the Iron Rice Bowl. He broke up the communes. He invited a bunch of foreign corporations over to exploit Chinese workers. He liberalized, and he put a knife in the back of the Soviet Union, the world's #1 socialist superpower at the time. So the Chinese totally betrayed international solidarity and fucked over the movement for their own national chauvinism and, for their own personal interests. So, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say besides that.
Okay, 1 through 5. First point about increasing living standards. You're attributing this just to modernization and capitalism and industrialization. That might make sense if the only increase in the standard of living was the brief period of the rise, the initial burst and shock opening up to foreign capital, whatever you're talking about with Deng. But it's clear that the Chinese government has made it its consistent policy to steer the development of China in a way that is in the favor of the majority of Chinese people. It cannot explain anything if you just say it's the random, spontaneous anarchy of the market that corresponds to modernization, which is what happened in the 19th century. So this is not enough to explain the tremendous rise in the standard of living in the Chinese people. It even does a worse job in explaining the recent program of Xi Jinping's poverty alleviation programs. That could possibly be explained as, it's just a consequence of modernization. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The modernization has happened for decades. Okay? At a certain point, after modernization, it reaches a certain threshold in which people's living standards stop being substantially improved. Now, in the West, the only reason the people's living standards went up is for a combination of factors: the Soviet Union, the trade union movement, and all that kind of stuff, the political class struggle, and the economic class struggle. In China, there has been a consistent improvement and rise in the people's standard of living so as to prevent widespread pauperization, the type of pauperization that does correspond to proletarianization. Furthermore, the accusation of proletarianization is dubious. And there's a few reasons for this. There is a phenomena of the hukou system and migrants coming from the country going into the cities, but those people still have land back in the countryside as their social safety net. Now, the Xi Jinping era has actually precisely corresponded to the growth of a new middle class, which is no longer tied down strictly to agricultural land, but is now being given and housed in new forms of housing. This is, in essence, what the poverty alleviation program is. So there has never been, actually, in China, the type of pauperization and proletarianization that occurred in the 19th century. Because, two reasons, like I already mentioned. The ownership of land in the countryside, which is a social safety net, that didn't happen in England and in Europe. They were kicked out of the land and they had fucking nothing. They were living on the streets with nothing to support them. Two, there's a newfound effort to create a new social safety net. So proletarianization has been precisely avoided in China. Regarding wealth inequality, it's an issue that is being brought up within China itself, within the party itself, and it's being discussed among the Chinese people itself. Now, wealth inequality may be an indication of something bad or something indicating something bad. That's up to the Chinese people. But it does not tell us anything about whether China can be meaningfully called socialist or not. Wealth inequality is not a way to define fundamental relations and forces of production. It's just not. It's about how, and by the way, what wealth is in China is how much money you have, how much assets you own, things owned in quotation marks, because nobody actually really owns anything in China in the classical liberal sense. Ownership is heavily oriented toward the obligation and duty to fulfill social aims. So there's no blank check type of ownership. And I know people could say, well, it's like that in America too. Yeah, but in China, it's completely different than in America. It's not simply that you can own things, but you also have to pay taxes and there's regulation stuff. All forms of ownership in China ultimately are forced to, whether directly or indirectly, serve the purpose of some kind of established social ends. Number two, regarding this whole thing is about landlords and they have to lease it out for a long time, that's not really my point. The whole point is that when you're meaningfully speaking of a landlord class, if all land in China is owned by the government, what that means is that at any given time, they can be dispossessed of that land if they're not using it in a way that serves social ends. The government ultimately owns all land, means all land must serve the purpose of benefiting the whole people. So to say that there's a landlord class in the same way that there was before is extremely misleading. Okay? Yes, there's people who rent out apartments and properties and all that kind of stuff to other people. That does exist in China. But to say that, that's the exact same thing as a landlord class, it's pretty misleading. And it does, by the way, that doesn't also tell us anything. That doesn't address the fundamental point about how is it that it can be said that the government, the state, supports the interests of landlords at the expense of the people in the ultimate and final sense. Regarding Chinese capitalists, you have to let me finish actually. Regarding Chinese capitalists having no power and the fact that there's lobbying within the CCP, There's all sorts of factions that happen within the CCP. But what defines whether China is socialist or whether it has a capitalist ruling class is if those interests can ultimately preponderate in actually defining the CCP's ultimate policies. But what we've seen as the consistent track record of history is that the party, the Chinese Communist Party, to use the Leninist phrase, bends the stick straight. They keep a straight line. They keep focused on their ultimate aim of developing the forces of production and benefiting the whole people. And those elements you're talking about ultimately never succeed in gaining hegemony. Now, they do exist. There's liberal elements in the party, and there's also leftist elements within the party. The party is fundamentally centrist in the Bolshevik sense, though. Okay, it balances all the different kinds of interests. It never gives way or allows one interest to hold sway, and this is in keeping with the Confucian type of whatever values that are espoused in China. Now, regarding this thing, they weren't socialists in the first place, and they were only socialists under Mao. This is actually completely arbitrary. It cannot be meaningfully said that China ceased to be socialist because Deng got rid of the people's communes, because as Marx put out, and I can read the passage of Marx right now, socialism or communism is not actually defined by some type of determinate site in which there's a collective ownership. You want me to read I can actually read out the thing from Marx right now. You see, the issue, no, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it out.
May I know where it's from?
Yes, I do know where it's from. The thing for Marx?
Yeah, well, may I know
Private Property and Communism. You can pull it up and read it yourself. Let's see. I know what I'm looking for. It's right here. It's right here. Okay. The entire movement of history is therefore both the actual act of creation of communism, the birth of its empirical existence, and, for its thinking consciousness, the comprehended and known movement of its becoming. Whereas the other communism, which is not yet fully developed, seeks in isolated historical forms opposed to private property, ergo in this case the communes, a historical proof for itself. A proof drawn from that already exists by retching isolated moments from their proper places in the process of development. A hobby horse Quebec, a Villegardelle particularly like to ride, and advancing them as proofs of its historical pedigree. But all it succeeds in showing is that the far greater part of this development contradicts its assertions, and that if it did not once exist, then the very fact that it existed in the past refutes the claims to essential being. Marx's pretty much point here is that communism cannot be thought of as being only being at this site of, there's some commune or some type of, isolated moment or some type of isolated historical form. Communism has to be taken from a more holistic perspective, which can't just say, oh, they got rid of the communes or they got rid of the kolkhozes, something like that, and therefore it's not communism. This, again, is committing the error Marx is talking about. Communism isn't just about this. It's about what is common that's relevant to communism is at a high... This is a very hard text to comprehend, but I think this paragraph in particular addresses the specific point that the smashing of the communes, the getting rid of the rice bowl in the communes, is proof that socialism collapsed. It's just not true because socialism isn't reducible to those. Now, regarding this business about inviting foreign corporations, you simply do not understand how trade wars of the modern era happen. Western moralists actually are the ones who think that foreign corporations go and exploit people all the time in other countries. This isn't the main way exploitation actually happens, because this is going to sound like I'm a conservative or I'm a right-winger, but this is the plain-faced fact of the era of trade wars. The people who benefit are the ones who are industrializing themselves, not just because it's providing steady jobs and all this stuff, but because China is establishing the productive forces. Meanwhile, in the United States, there was a deindustrialization that was happening at the same time. Who was benefiting? America's economy and its people were going through a deindustrialization precisely because they were not being, quote-unquote, exploited, like how you're saying. So you are simply very ignorant about the era of trade wars, and I know you're going to twist my words and be like, oh, so you're basically saying that all this sweatshops and stuff is good, and it's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to say that your narrow view of how true economic predatory whatever things work is very outdated and very Western-centric too, because you have this Western moralistic view, and China's laughing its way to the bank at you for it. Now, regarding this betrayal, this geopolitics of the betrayal of the Soviet Union, this is a more difficult issue and a more complicated topic, and I'm going to talk about it with Comrade King. But all I can say is that the one who started this, and the one who was actually more aggressive on this point, I would argue, was Mao. Under Mao, there was a real and distinct possibility that there was going to be an all-out war between the Soviet Union and China. Soviet officials were anticipating an invasion of mass Chinese infantry into the Soviet Union under Mao at the height of the Cultural Revolution. Deng's people actually represented the Soviet-created and Soviet-backed Chinese institutions who built up the most initial form of Chinese socialism before Mao introduced the uniquely Chinese one. If anything, Deng's people were a little bit more soft on the Soviet Union than Mao. You can't forget that the rapprochement with the United States began under Mao when he met with Nixon. So if this is some kind of proof that China isn't socialist, you can't meaningfully say it was socialist under Mao either. Because Mao is the one who began the rapprochement with the Soviet Union. Okay, it's your turn. Go ahead.
All right. So I want to try and narrow down the number of topics that we are talking about, because I feel like the longer that we talk, the longer I talk and clarify my points, the more you counter, and there's just more things for me to have to address. So I'm going to try to narrow this all down as quickly as I possibly can and reply to what I've made bullet points of. All right. So, and concerning their growth, what was it you said about their growth again? That it was very quickly. It wasn't just industrialization. It was just the power of Chinese socialism or whatever, just the buildup of productive forces.
What do you mean? You were talking about the only reason there was an increase for China's standard of living was the fact that there was just an initial type of modernization.
Well, I mean, I argue that it's really just industrialization, modernization,
it's not
science.
True. It's a bullshit argument.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
The direct material mode of production tends to affect.
Are you going to address my argument, though? Are you going to address my argument that I made, though, that at a certain threshold, that benefit is exhausted and there's a widespread pauperization that didn't happen in China, and that couldn't possibly explain the growth in the standard of living that actually happened across Chinese history since Deng's reform and opening up, strictly on the basis of some type of that this was actually directed and focused and planned by the Chinese government, the modernization that happened. It wasn't just the inevitable result of capitalist modernization.
So yeah, I know. The hundreds of millions of Chinese people went from living on $2 a day to $4 a day. I know, massive improvement.
Well, you know what? There has been a substantial improvement in China. Do you want to deny that, or we can get into that? Do you want to deny there has been a massive...
So the reason why China's economy has grown as quickly as it has is because they have massive reserves of untapped labor.
India does. So does India.
They have room to grow, and they will grow for decades to come.
You think India can grow as quickly as China did, and it's going to be like that?
I mean, India's going to grow rather quickly, maybe not as fast as China.
Why not?
Because their political apparatus isn't as efficient as theirs.
Oh, and you think India's people aren't going to go through this pauperization, aren't going to go through any type of widespread pauperization and anarchy of production?
They probably will, actually.
Okay.
The reason why China hasn't experienced business cycles is because they have all these markets to tap into. They have markets in the United States. They have markets in South America. They have markets literally everywhere where they can undercut local production and sell all of their cheap consumer goods.
Oh, why can't America do that? That didn't save America in 2008. China never experienced a crisis to this day.
Because nobody in America wants to work in a factory for 70 hours a week getting paid like $1 an hour.
Okay, but you just said that the reason China doesn't go through the boom and bust cycles is because it's a globalized world. But it's a globalized world for everybody. That's not an adequate excuse.
Yeah, because the rate of exploitation is so much higher in China. I mean, why?
But I
pay
thought it
people
was
back
outside
home?
of China that we're talking about. Why is
Well,
it within China that there's a diversity of markets? You just mentioned that China goes to other countries and sells its cheap goods.
They export. They export. It's not just in. It's not just within. It's
So
also
only China has cheap labor. That's why China didn't go through a crisis, because it has cheap labor.
well, cheaper. It's cheaper to pay someone like pennies an hour in China to produce shoes rather than someone
Probably cheaper in Africa and India too. It's cheaper elsewhere. It's actually cheaper at other places now than in China. And they can't avoid these crises. The crises hit them hard too.
Yeah, and believe it or not, China suffers recessions as well. I believe they had one in 2014 and 2008. The global market got fucked.
But whatever recessions China has are immediately offset by the state, unlike in the United States.
Yeah, like I said, they have a very well organized, tightly knit, well lubricated, centralized political
machine. So you would deny that are you going to say there's an anarchy of production in China?
I mean, to an extent there is, but Chinese government, I mean, you're going to have business cycles within a market economy.
That doesn't say that's an anarchy of production, though.
Well, here's the thing. They're producing commodities, right? They have their commodity production. They're producing towards profit, all right? They're producing.
No, they're not producing towards profit.
Let me create a hypothetical situation, a fairly realistic, but not that realistic hypothetical situation, all right? So let's say America reindustrialized and we started producing all of our own stuff, all right?
It needs socialism to do that. Only with socialism can it do that.
Okay, well, let's say America does, all right?
With socialism.
We start producing all of our own stuff again, and we start becoming an exporter.
Okay.
Do you realize that would actually fuck the Chinese economy because of how much they rely on importing to us, like how much stuff they produce for us, all the cheap consumer goods? Do you realize that would fuck them and cause a recession and immediately
but that's why China wants to create a new global order where countries and economies coordinate their activities so that there's the best possible outcome for everyone, and it's a fair balance.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the fact that the business cycle in the first place and that they depend on exporting cheap consumer goods to other countries in order for their economic prosperity
You don't think that socialist countries in the 20th century exported cheap goods to countries to stay afloat?
Yeah, no, they exported commodities, don't get me wrong, but they didn't depend on the commodity production, all right? It wasn't use value in pursuit of exchange value. It wasn't generalized commodity production.
Well, your view is just very narrow because it appears like it's for exchange value in China, but it all goes toward determinate ends such as infrastructure. In no meaningful sense can you say it's just for profit, because China, the ultimate economic rationality and logic that drives the Chinese economy is ultimately based on ends established by the state. It's not just based on profit, because profits are limited sometimes and profits are also tolerated sometimes. The only meaningful, consistent thread of reason and rationality behind it is whether it serves social ends. China's debt, it produces infrastructure. It goes into debt to produce infrastructure, for example. There's no immediate gain on profitability with those kinds of ventures whatsoever.
Yeah,
we're dealing with something that is necessarily outside of MCM. You need to go outside of MCM to explain China. Now, MCM, don't get me wrong, is still an epicycle, but but Marx and Engels described the transformation from capitalism to socialism not as a complete, whole outright abolition or negation, but as a gradual transformation. What they didn't think was gradual was the political revolution, but the politics and the economy are two different things.
Let me get a word in, all right? So, Nordic countries too sink a great deal of money into their infrastructure. Are they now socialist countries because of it?
No, I don't think so, because Nordic countries, they might spend money on infrastructure, but it is nowhere at the level of scale in terms of being a fundamental component of its... I mean, plenty of countries spend money on infrastructure. That's not only China. What I'm trying to say is that the Chinese economy cannot be explained ultimately purely in terms of MCM. The Nordic economies ultimately are a part of the American financial great chain of being. So ultimately, yes, ultimately the Nordic countries are sacrificing their people for the golden calf. There's just more stages in between that do correspond to some type of welfare state and building of infrastructure. It's not based on the form, it's based on where it ends, where the cycle ends. In China, the cycle ends for the people. With the American-led world order, the cycle ends for the enrichment of the oligarchy. Now, along that cycle, there may be benefits involved for the improvement of the people and all that kind of stuff. But the ultimate rationality driving it is profit, still.
Yeah,
that's not the case in China.
Thank you. Thank you for verifying that profits are still in command. So there's an article.
Not in China, though, but not in China.
Let me. There's an article I want to send you, and this is an article that I was actually saving when I was preparing for the debate earlier. Okay, so it's called "How Reform Has Made China's State-Owned Enterprises Stronger." Let me ask you: is the World Economic Forum an imperialist source for this? Is it an imperialist source?
I never dismiss sources because of their origin. I dismiss them because of their content. So what they have to say.
So hear this. Everything that I have seen in terms of evidence that China is in the process of transitioning to socialism has actually been in the opposite direction. So here are some points from the article. Yeah. China is privatizing gradually by reforming state-owned enterprises into modern competitive businesses.
By the way, I know what you're talking about. Can I just talk about it?
The wave of mergers and privatizations of small enterprises has consolidated the number of SOE.
I know about this.
So in lieu of this evidence, in light of this, how do you reconcile the fact that they're actually trending more towards...
That's a great question. Great question. The problem with you is that you don't think dialectically. I know it's going to sound like it's a curveball, but hear me out. You think that an apparent privatization, which is repeating, by the way, the same logic of Deng's privatization, means that the CCP is letting loose its control and ultimately allowing for interests and ends to be established beyond its own. But actually, when you think dialectically, you realize, and this is actually factually true, every single privatization that occurs in China and the state laxing control also corresponds to a deepening of that control. So you have to understand the dialectical logic that preponderates in Chinese Marxism. Letting go is also the same as taking control in a new and more fundamental way. Every particularization of the economy corresponds to an increased abstraction of the party's rule. Now that sounds like a bunch of gibberish, but now let's pull up this article that I have myself ready at hand. CCP announces plan to take control of China's private sector.
Could you send it to me?
Sure, it's right here in the Discord. I'll send it right here in the...
Could you DM it to me?
I'll DM it to you, right here. You see, China is engaging in a new privatization, but it's also consolidating the manner by which it is able to exert control and influence over these companies to ensure that they fulfill social ends. That's why China's privatization follows a logic of a type of decentralization. And there's a dialectic of decentralization and centralization. Decentralization allows the latent material forces in actual reality to express themselves outside of the subjectivism of state control, while also allowing the state control to become more attuned to those forces and then ultimately orient those forces towards ends established by it. That's the nature, and it's perfectly in tune with China, the Marxist materialist dialectic that is unique to Chinese Marxism.
Is this the thing that I heard about where they're just going to have a CCP official that's on the board of every single private business in the country? Because I think I might have read about
this. It's more than that, too. It's not just that. There's more to it than that. I recommend you read the article. There's more than 100 measures, okay? It's not
to better focus the wisdom and strengthen of the private business people on the goal and mission to realize the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Xi's instructions were issued ahead of a conference today on this very topic. The party wants to see a united front between private enterprise and government business. doesn't this class collaborationist line kind of bother you?
No, it's
Like,
not. It's not class collaborationist.
They want these private business owners to collaborate with the state towards a common goal, and
Yeah.
I'm telling. I mean, you want to. I mean, if you agree with it, fine, but just know it's not
Not that I
social.
agree with it. It's that the example you gave of an increased privatization also corresponds to an even greater degree of control exercised by the party that it didn't have before over private business. So it's a dialectic, is all I'm trying to say. You're talking about class collaboration, but actually, class collaboration is only meaningful in the sense of the actual political class struggle. Class collaboration, for example, means sacrificing the proletarian class struggle in favor of compromising with liberal and reformist whatever elements or the big bourgeoisie. In the case of China's governments, Chinese Marxists would argue with you that there cannot be said to be a meaningfully distinct capitalist class within China. And now intuitively this doesn't make sense to us because we know that there's business owners in China and there's people making profits and money in China. But in the technical sense of the word class, at least as laid out by Marx in the technical sense, the Chinese Marxists would say there's no class antagonism within China. There is no class division. It's still a proletarian dictatorship. And I know this is going to sound politically correct, but again, I have yet to see a convincing argument from your camp that persuasively and consistently refutes it. Chinese Marxists would argue that the people you're calling a distinct capitalist class are just part of the Chinese people making money in some kind of way. And by the way,
They're private owners.
But
all right. I'm not concerned.
But you also have to admit, for example, it's so ambiguous because in the countryside, before the recent reforms that are giving people apartments to own en masse, the Chinese masses are going to own. Let me speak.
Well, this is the reason
Let me speak. The small and intensive agriculture that was opened up after Deng's reforms that corresponded to the great majority of the Chinese countryside. They were also capitalists by your same definition. All the Chinese people are capitalists.
They're not capitalists for owning private plots of land. They're peasants. There's a difference.
But they're selling their produce on the market and making a profit.
They're private plots. They're subsistence farmers. All right.
It's not only subsistence. They also sell. But they also sell. No. They gained. No. You're wrong. You're wrong, dude. You're wrong.
I'm wrong. Okay, so
it wasn't purely based on subsistence. They gained more money from doing it. It wasn't purely based on subsistence.
Okay, so I'd love to keep talking to you, but it's pretty clear to me that you're going to hog like 80% of the mic time, and every time I try to interject, challenge you on your points, you're just going to shout me down. I almost don't see a point.
Well, I did let you speak and make your point, but is that all?
Yeah, but like.
Okay.
You just run your mouth, dude. Like,
okay.
I really don't know how to put.
So you said you're gonna humiliate me, and I'm gonna make an ass of myself. I'll let the chat decide how it went down. Is that any?
Well, I mean, your chat's full of ass lick.
Okay. So, closing remarks.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've got a series on a people's history of socialism, and if you guys would like to learn about the history of
fuck out of my show, bitch. Just the fuck up. Stupid bitch.